it's time to sit back and relax with your favorite drink. And listen.
I'm an engineer on a remote Texan oil rig. Strange things are happening. By Augustus Cordoba. Part 1. The rotors chopped slower and slower until the chopper finally kissed down on the helipad. 3 hours of getting slammed around over the Gulf of Mexico had left my legs like wet rope. When I stepped out, the offshore platform rose in front of me like some steel monster crawling out of the sea. Vast, loud, and alive with heat and metal. In over 18 years of oil work, I'd never seen anything this size. This wasn't just a platform, it was a goddamn fortress. I slung my duffel bag over my shoulder and started toward what looked like a processing station. 2 men with assault rifles moved to block me, their faces stone cold. Not the kind of security you slap on a regular rig. ID and authorization, the taller one barked, hand out like a loaded weapon. I handed over my credentials and transfer papers. Jeff Montana, senior drilling engineer. He scanned my info with a handheld, then stared into my face like he was trying to read my thoughts. His partner kept his eyes fixed on the water, not me. That was strange. Out here, the threat usually came from inside, but not this time. Clear, the tall one said, passing back my papers. Follow the yellow line to processing. I followed it through steel corridors, past keycard scanners and cameras that blinked like predators in the dark. The deeper I went, the less it looked like a rig and more like a classified lab or black site military base. Doors reinforced, labeled with levels of access, most stamped authorized personnel only, in big angry letters. At the processing booth, a woman behind bulletproof glass didn't look up as she took my prints and scanned my eyes. Then she slid a keycard through the slot. Level 2 clearance, she said, flat as a corpse. Don't try any doors marked 3 or higher. I gave her a nod and pocketed the card. Who do I report to? Foreman Kurt McClure, East Wing, Operations. She pointed in the direction. Kurt McClure looked like he'd seen combat in places no one talked about. Mid-40s, grey hair cut short, posture like a Marine. He barely glanced at me when I stepped into his office. Montana, he said. This was not a question. He tapped his tablet. North Sea, Kazakhstan, Palmer rigs. Yeah, your resume's solid. Why'd you take this posting? Well, most foremen didn't give a damn, as long as you could hold a wrench and keep quiet, but his question was loaded. Well, triple the pay, I said, and curiosity. The job description was, let's say, thin. His eyes narrowed. We value discretion. Your contract includes an NDA for a reason. But he didn't elaborate, just went back to the screen. Right, you'll bunk with Dale Glover. 3 years here. He'll get you settled. Tomorrow, 0600, you get your full briefing. Questions? He asked. Yeah, what exactly are we drilling for out here? He looked up, eyes as hard as glass. Oil, Montana. What else? But his tone didn't match the answer. And I knew not to push. Well, not just yet. No more questions, sir. He nodded. Mess halls, East Wing, 3rd level. I followed the yellow lines again. The mess hall had real windows, not portholes, not bolted view slits, but a full wall of thick glass looking out over the ocean. Oh, felt like luxury. The food smelled like it came from an actual kick glove. I grabbed a tray of steak and greens that didn't look freeze-dried and scanned the half-filled room. Maybe 30 workers here. You must be Montana, the voice said from behind me. I turned. Guy in his early 30s, eyes sharp, body language tighter than a coiled spring. Same uniform, different presence. He studied people like they were puzzle pieces he didn't trust. Dale Glover, he said, offering a hand. His shake was firm but short, like he was already weighing up how much trouble I'd be. He nodded toward an empty table, and we sat. How long you been in oil? Just over 18 years, I said. Started roughnecking right out of school. Worked my way up. You? 5 years. 3 of them here. 2 at smaller outfits. I run systems on the eastern platform. His answers were clipped, precise, like everything he said was filtered through caution. I cut into my steak. Ooh, perfectly cooked, real. Not something I expected out here. Damn, food's better than any rig I've been on, I said. Dale nodded. Company keeps people comfortable. Contracts are long. 8 months on, 1 month off. That made me pause. I mean, most rigs ran 2 weeks on, 2 off, maybe a month. 8 months was like a prison sentence. 2 other guys approached. The older one gave Dale a nod. This a new guy? He asked. Dale gestured toward me. Jeff Montana. Chris Reeve, the man said, sticking out a hand. Production floor 2. This here's Duncan Ward, senior tech. Chris looked like he owned the whole platform. Early 30s, confident, solid. Not a trace of hesitation in his step. Like if something went wrong out here, he'd already know where to bury the body. Duncan looked older. Late 30s maybe, but his eyes were sharp. Too sharp, if anything. The kind that missed nothing. Welcome aboard, Chris said, sliding into the seat across from me. How's the flight in? Long, I muttered. Lots of ocean, a lot of nothing. You'll get used to the isolation, Duncan said without looking up, poking at something on his plate that might have been food. His eyes flicked over to Dale, then back down. Something twitchy in his movements, like a man a bit too aware of what might be watching. So, what are the production numbers like? I asked, keeping it light. I didn't expect a straight answer, but I wanted to see how they played it. Chris and Duncan exchanged a glance. Just a flicker, but it said enough. Silent conversation in the space of a second. A warning, perhaps, or a reminder. Standard deep water extraction, Chris said slowly, like he was choosing each word with care. You'll get the full specs tomorrow. Oh, we're hitting targets, Duncan added, voice flat. That's the important part. I tried again, pushing just a little. Drilling depth, standard or ultra deep. Silence dropped over the table like a guillotine. Even Dale shifted, his whole body tensing next to me. All operation details are covered in the morning briefing, Duncan said finally. Same polite tone, but cold, final. Conversation dead. Dinner turned to bullshit small talk after that. Texan sports teams, the satellite reception, nothing with real weight. Every time I nudged it back toward the rig, they got vague or just clammed up. These guys were hiding something, and they weren't even pretending otherwise. After dinner, Dale led me to our quarters. Bigger than any room I'd ever seen offshore. 2 real beds, a sitting area, even a private bathroom. Like everything else on this rig, it was too clean, too polished. And like the mess, it had a window. This one looked west, just in time to catch the last slice of sun bleeding into the Gulf. Lights out at 2200, Dale said. Not enforced, just don't make noise. He pointed to a wall panel. Comm system there. Blues for general announcements, reds emergencies. Do not touch the black button. What's the black button do? You don't have clearance to know, he said without hesitation. So, don't. Dale took the bed farthest from the door and pulled out a tablet. Conversation over. I unpacked in silence and showered fast. When I came out, Dale was turned away, already motionless in bed. I lay down, but sleep didn't come. The rig sounded wrong. I knew these platforms. I knew the groan of steel, the drone of generators, the whisper of the sea. But under all that was something else, low and steady. A pulse that wasn't mechanical. Something ancient, something buried deep. I got up and looked out the window. No moon, just the rig's floodlights carving into the dark. But the ocean, the ocean didn't reflect. The lights hit it and just vanished, like the water absorbed it, drank it down, leaving a perfect circle of darkness around us. The pulsing grew louder, not just in my ears, through my ribs and my spine. Something down there was huge and alive and, well, I pressed my face to the glass, trying to see what the dark was hiding. For a second, just a second, I swear I saw it. Not waves, not shadows. Something moving. Something solid. And then it was gone. Behind me, Dale spoke, his voice cutting through the quiet like a blade. Don't look at the water too long. So he hadn't been asleep after all. It's, against rig protocols, he said. Why? I asked, turning around. He sat up, face unreadable in the half-light. Look, you should sleep. Morning briefings at 0600. You'll need to be sharp. He turned away again. Conversation definitely over. I lay back down, but sleep just didn't come. That rhythm below us kept beating in my bones. That dark circle in the sea burned behind my eyelids every time I shut them. Dale didn't say another word after this warning, and I didn't press him. At 0530, my alarm dragged me out of a half-dream that felt more like drowning. Dale was already dressed, sitting on the edge of his bed like he hadn't slept at all. Yeah, you look like crap, he said without looking. Thanks. I rubbed my eyes. Coffee any good? Better than you'd expect. Grab it on the way. I showered fast, trying to scrub the unease off my skin. Even the water pressure felt aggressive. As I got dressed, I caught Dale watching me in the mirror. What? I asked. Nothing, he said. Let's go. Kurt doesn't tolerate late. The mess hall was busy, buzzing with a shift change. I filled a thermos with jet black coffee and it smelled strong enough to take the paint off a hull. For the first time since landing, I felt halfway human. But that rhythm was still there, beneath it all, beating, waiting. Dale led me through a maze of metal corridors that echoed with a low, constant hum, like the rig itself was alive and muttering to itself. The air was stale, thick with oil and something else I couldn't quite place. We reached a large conference room, already half full. 20 men and women sat in silence, faces blank, eyes forward. Kurt stood at the front, scrolling through a tablet like a priest about to deliver bad news. He looked up when we entered, checked his watch and muttered, 5 minutes, like a threat. I slid into an empty seat next to Chris, who gave me a nod that didn't reach his eyes. The coffee in my hand was hot and bitter, too strong, like it was meant to jolt you awake hard. Kurt set the tablet down with a heavy clunk. Morning briefing. No warm-up, no jokes, just the facts. Before assignments, he said, pressing a button on the console. A reminder of where we are. The lights dimmed, and a digital schematic flickered to life behind him, a cross-section of the rig extending deep into the black ocean trench. Brand newest team member, Kurt said, eyes locking on me. And as a refresher for the rest, this installation operates what, within the company, is classified as a pocket of exception. Standard physics don't always apply here. Well, my fatigue evaporated. Over 18 years on rigs, and I'd never heard those words strung together. Chris must have noticed the look on my face. He gave a subtle shake of his head, a subtle warning. Kurt tapped his screen, and the display changed. Now it showed a cold list of rules. Rule 1. No prolonged observation of the ocean. 30 seconds max. This is not superstition. There are recorded incidents. He then moved down the rest of the list, voice flat. Rule 2. No physical contact with the water. If you drop something, report it. Do not try to retrieve it. Rule 3. Maintain constant radio contact during outdoor operations. If comms drop for more than 60 seconds, emergency protocols go active. No exceptions. Rule 4. Report any unusual sightings immediately. Do not engage, do not investigate. Duncan raised a hand then. Sir, about Rule 4. What counts as unusual? Kurt's face hardened. You know company policy, Ward. If you see something that doesn't belong on an oil rig or in the Gulf, report it. Well, that sat heavy and vague in the air. It was deliberate, and nobody reacted. This wasn't new to them. Assignments, Kurt barked, like he was glad to move on. Montana, you're with Reeve on Production East. Glover, monitoring Station 3. Ward, Southern Sensors. Rest of you, check your tablets. Chairs scraped, boots hit steel, and the crew filtered out. Talk of pressure readings and shift rotations hummed around me like nothing had happened. Like we hadn't just been told not to touch the ocean. Chris tapped on my shoulder. Yeah, ready for the tour? We moved through more cold halls. At the elevator, he swiped his card and we descended. So, I said, a pocket of exception. Chris sighed through his nose. Yeah, I know how it sounds. Weird things happen here. Just stick to the rules and you'll be fine. What kind of weird? The elevator stopped, and he didn't answer. We stepped into the heart of the rig then, East Production. A cavernous space filled with towering machinery and glowing panels. The floor thrummed with power. This is one of your 4 main drill platforms, Chris said. Your post's here. He led me to a station overlooking the main shaft. We all looked familiar. Gauges, monitors, fail-safes. For the first time since I landed, something actually felt normal. Your job's to keep parameters stable, Chris said. Pressure, temp, torque. If anything goes sideways, call me or Kurt immediately. I ran my hand over the controls. Solid, real. So, what's our depth? 12,342 meters, still descending. I snapped my head up. That was deeper than anything I'd worked. Wait, that's impossible. Chris didn't flinch. Like Kurt said, this place doesn't play by the rules. He showed me the modified safety systems, double redundancies, instant shutdown triggers, evacuation routes on every wall. Every station had a direct line to security. This all feels like overkill, I muttered. Better to have it and not need it. Then he pointed to a wall of monitors showing underwater footage, support structures stretching into the darkness. Keep an eye on those, he said. See anything off and hit the blue button. The video was clear. I mean, too clear. The ocean at this depth should have been grainy, distorted. Instead, it looked like the cameras were filming through air. Something about it twisted in my gut. This place wasn't normal. And whatever was down here, it was watching. Part 2. Hey, what's powering these cameras? I asked, staring at the feed. I mean, the resolution was razor sharp, too clear for the depth we were at. Proprietary tech, Chris said, his go-to response whenever something didn't sit right. We moved on, weaving through the production floor. I kept clocking things that didn't belong. Hardened plating where there shouldn't be any. Equipment rigged like it was bracing for an impact that had nothing to do with the weather. Reinforced bulkheads near water access points. And the doors, some marked with strange symbols I didn't recognize. They weren't OSHA, that was for sure. Around noon, Chris led me back to the mess. It smelled like real food, not rig slop. I grabbed a tray and sat across from Dale, who was eating alone. How's the tour? He asked. Informative, I said, no emotion in my voice. Good gear? Well, looks like it. He jabbed at his lunch, like it had personally offended him. They gave you the bit about the pocket? Yeah, you believe that? Doesn't matter what I believe. The rules keep you breathing. He lowered his voice then. Crew turnover's high. People vanish. 5 gone last month. No morning, no goodbye, just reassigned, supposedly. I've thought about all the tight security and the rifles. The way everyone avoided talking about the ocean. Transferred where? Dale shrugged. Company's got sites all over. Some volunteer, others, He trailed off then. Changed the subject. Food's good though, right? After lunch, Chris showed me more of the rig. By shift's end, my head was buzzing. None of this added up. What kind of oil platform drilled deeper than physics should allow? What kind of outfit needed guards with rifles and warnings about the water? Back in my quarters, I showered. Dale was gone, so I had the room to myself. I stared out the window, tracking the time. The ocean was black, seemingly endless. Shadows moved, guards walking the perimeter, rifles at the ready. But they weren't looking outward. They were watching the sea. Something shimmered on the horizon. A boat, cutting in fast from the east. Lights bright, small, not a supply ship, looked more like a research vessel. Equipment stacked along the deck. I watched it close in, wondering what kind of science they were doing out there. Dale came back just as I stepped away from the window. "Yeah, research ship's coming in," I said. He glanced out and didn't even flinch. "Yeah, they come and go. Part of the operation." What kind of operation needs both drillers and scientists? No answer. Just climbed into bed. So did I. But again, sleep didn't come easy. The pulsing from below, the low throbbing vibration of the rig, it was louder tonight. Somehow meaner. I lay awake listening, picturing dark water and pale faces just beneath the surface, guards pacing, eyes locked on the waves. By morning, the research vessel was gone. No trace of it. But on the walk to breakfast, I spotted new hardware being bolted onto the southern platform. Big industrial-grade stuff. I hadn't been there yesterday. 3 days in, and they put me on night shift. East platform. No warning, no prep. 1 minute I was finishing lunch, the next I was waving off the day crew and watching the sun die behind steel railings. Night out there was different. The hustle and noise gave way to silence that pressed in around you. The mechanical hum of drills and generators was the only sound. With the crew gone, the platform felt like, a tomb. I made my rounds. Gauges held steady. Too steady. We were drilling at impossible depths. 12,358 meters and counting. And every time I thought about it, my stomach turned. We were down where we shouldn't be, past the crush point, into the unknown. And Chris's words came back to me. Pocket of exception. At 2 a.m., I did a full sweep, writing down maintenance checks, eyes scanning for anything out of place. Being alone gave me too much time to think. The weapons, the silence, the new gear on the south side, all of it circling in my head like sharks. By 3 a.m., the silence felt thick enough to choke on. I poured myself some coffee, the kind that tastes like mud and keeps your blood moving, and wrote down the hourly metrics. We'd gone deeper. The drill hadn't stopped. At exactly 3:17 a.m., a scream ripped open through the rig. Human. Raw, close. I stood so fast I spilled my coffee, the mug clattering across the console as the screaming continued. It was high, panicked, and then cut off like someone had thrown a switch. The silence crashed down again, heavier than before. And just like that, I wasn't alone anymore. The screams came again, raw, ragged, full of something worse than pain. Fear, real fear, the kind that makes your skin crawl before your brain can even catch up. I grabbed the radio. "This is Montana, East Production. Screams lower deck, copy?" Only static, and then, "All personnel remain at stations. Security responding." Kurt's voice, clipped and cold. The radio still in my hand, I listened. The screaming didn't stop, it was worse now. Shouting mixed in. Protocol said stay put unless ordered. Well, screw protocol. I hit the stairs, boots slamming metal 2 at a time. The lower deck was a coffin of wind and steel, the outside walkway wrapping the platform like a noose. I shoved open the bulkhead door. The air hit like a gut punch, wet, cold, reeking of salt and oil. And then I saw it. 3 guards surrounded a guy near the railing. It was Mark, I think, one of the drill team. He was on his back, clawing at the deck, eyes bulging like something inside him was trying to get out. 2 guards gripped his arms, straining to pull him back. A third had a harpoon gun leveled at the sea. "Hold him!" someone shouted. Mark's body jerked toward the railing, like something under the water had a hook in his spine. One guy lost his footing and scraped across the deck, boots shrieking against the steel. The other 2 were barely holding on. "What the hell's happening?" I yelled, moving toward them. "Get back inside," one guard barked, eyes never leaving the water. Well, the harpoon fired, and the shot slapped the ocean, and then the surface came alive. It was bubbling, churning, something huge moving beneath. It wasn't a shark, not anything I'd ever seen in the ocean, just darkness, shifting, watching. Mark screamed, a sound that didn't sound human anymore. One guard lost his grip. The last one couldn't hold him. Mark slid like dead weight toward the rail, his heels smearing blood across the deck. And then he lifted, like something had just picked him up. He went over the edge without a splash, and the water took him like it was hungry. And then silence. The sea went flat again, smooth as glass. "Man overboard!" the guard barked into his radio. "East platform, lower deck." More guards came running. Then Kurt appeared beside me, sweat on his face despite the cold. "Inside, now," he ordered, voice flat as stone. "Lockdown protocols are in effect." I didn't move. "That wasn't normal," I said, the words dry in my throat. "That thing took him, it... Inside." Kurt's grip clamped down on my arm like a vice. "Now." Then the PA crackled to life. "All personnel, return to quarters. This is not a drill." Guards posted up at every junction, herding us in like cattle. Through the corridors I heard more chatter. Boats being lowered, teams assembling, search zones marked off in tight, practiced language. When I got back to my room, Dale was already there, fully dressed, sitting on the edge of his bunk. No surprise on his face, just something tired behind his eyes. "What happened?" he asked, voice level like he already knew. "A guy named Mark got yanked overboard. Something in the water took him. They couldn't hold him. It was like he was on a line, but nothing was there." Dale closed his eyes and breathed out. "Fuck," he whispered. "Not another one." I stopped pacing then. Another one. He looked at the corners of the room and then the ceiling. "We can't talk about this. Not here." The warning in Dale's eyes was sharp enough to cut. We sat in silence, taut and brittle as the hours dragged past. The lockdown held, announcements rolling throughout the rig like a heartbeat. "All non-essential personnel remain in quarters." Over and over. Then at 07:43, the PA crackled again. "Attention all personnel. Lockdown protocols have been lifted. Day shift may proceed to normal duties. Night shift will remain on extended duty until further notice." Dale stood without a word. "Well, they found him," he said, voice flat. "How do you know?" "They always do." He didn't look back. "Come on, breakfast." The mess hall was packed, but quiet in a way that made your nerves itch. Conversations barely above whispers. Forks scraping metal trays, heads turning when someone new walked in. Every face wore the same tight mask. Then Kurt appeared, stepping to the front of the room. His voice cut through the bars like a blade. "Attention." Silence fell throughout the room. At 03:17 hours, crew member Mark Haynes suffered an epileptic seizure while working on the east platform. During the medical event, he fell overboard. After an extensive search, Mr. Hayes was recovered approximately 2 miles from the installation. He's alive and receiving medical attention. He'll be transferred to a mainland hospital later today. I nearly choked on my coffee. Epileptic seizure? That wasn't even in the same universe as what I'd seen. I looked around the room, waiting, hoping to catch a glance, a flicker, anything that said someone else saw through this lie. Nothing. Just blank faces, eyes locked on trays, no one moving. Normal operations will resume immediately, Kurt continued. Additional safety briefings on proper railing protocols will be scheduled. That is all. Then he walked out, and the quiet lifted. Conversations resumed, low and cautious. I spotted Chris and Duncan at a table near the wall and slid into the seat across from them. Dale followed, silent. "That's not what happened," I said, low and sharp. "I saw the whole thing. Something pulled Mark into the water. He was dragged like a hook in his spine. The guard fired a harpoon." Dale kicked me hard under the table. Chris and Duncan shared a glance. Chris shook his head. "Montana," he said softly. "Mark had a seizure, lost his balance, fell in. That's what happened." "Yeah, but the water," I hissed. "It was alive, it was moving. There was something in it." "You want to get transferred?" Duncan's voice was ice. "Or worse?" The table went dead quiet then. That was my answer. Their eyes had said it. They'd seen things too, things that got buried fast. And this wasn't the first time. After breakfast, Kurt found me in the corridor. "Hey, Montana, a word." He led me into a small side room and shut the door. "I'm reassigning you," he said. "Western platform, effective immediately." I stared at him. "Western platform? That's halfway across the damn field." "Oh, we need your expertise there." His tone didn't flinch, and his face gave up nothing. "What about what I saw last night?" I asked. "We both know that wasn't a seizure." His expression turned to stone. "What you think you saw was distorted by darkness, distance, and stress. The medical team confirmed an epileptic event." "And the guards, the harpoon, the thing in the water?" "There were no guards present when Mark fell. No weapon discharged. You are misremembering due to stress." Then he stepped closer, his voice dropping to a whisper of steel. "This is your first and only warning, Montana. The official report states that Mark Hayes suffered a seizure and fell. Any other version will be treated as a violation of your NDA, grounds for immediate termination and potential legal action." The threat hung in the air like a noose. "Do I make myself clear?" he asked. "Crystal," I muttered. "Good. Western platform, 1400 hours." Then he opened the door. "Enjoy your breakfast." I didn't. Went back to my quarters, showered, changed, and before heading out, I made a detour. I told the nurse I had a headache and waited for her to leave. Through the small window in the door to the medical bay, I saw Mark. He was lying on a bed, eyes wide open, staring at the ceiling. Empty. Whatever came out of that water didn't just pull him under. It brought something else back. His body didn't move, except for the slow mechanical rise and fall of his chest. A team in full hazmat suits hovered over him like vultures in lab coats, jabbing him with needles, drawing samples, scanning every inch like he was something they'd dredged up from the bottom of the ocean. One of them clocked me through the window and made for the door fast. "This area's restricted," she said, planting herself in the frame. "Oh, medical needs. Headache," I muttered, already turning away. "I can come back." "Level 1 medical is on the residence floor. This is research medical only." "Research? not treatment. They weren't helping Mark. They were dissecting him. I didn't push it. I just nodded and walked away. But the truth had hit hard. Whatever got to him, they weren't trying to cure it. They were trying to understand it. Part 3. At 1400, I reported to the Western platform as ordered. The new supervisor rattled off a briefing like it was any other day. Same drill monitor, same fake steady pressure readouts, same impossible depth they kept digging into. I nodded, played along, took my seat at the console. Outside the reinforced glass, the sea was slate grey and dead still. In the distance, a helicopter dropped onto the rig like a bird of prey. Medical staff wheeled a gurney across the deck. Something was strapped down beneath a sheet. Mark, they said, bound for a mainland hospital. But I watched the chopper climb, bank, and vanish toward open ocean, not land. Same route the research vessel had taken 3 days earlier. Well, the rig changed after that. Not on the surface, and the coffee still tasted like rust and chemicals. The overhead fluorescent still hummed with that maddening buzz. But something underneath, something in the bones of the place, was different. Tighter. Meaner. On the second morning, a helicopter came in before dawn. 4 men stepped out, moving with the kind of precision you only see in trained killers. Black tactical gear, sidearms worn openly, no names, no smiles, no radio chatter, just quiet murmurs into their comms. By the third day, the east platform had been gutted. At least 8 regulars gone. The guys who worked Mark's shift vanished like smoke. Hey, where's Alvarez? I asked Chris in the corridor. Alvarez had been beside Mark at the console when it happened. Chris's eyes flicked to the security cam bolted to the ceiling. Oh, emergency transfer, family thing, he said, voice flat. And Glover? Rodriguez? Same, he said, already walking faster, eager to get away. After my shift ended, the pain behind my eyes felt like nails grinding through my skull. I used this, made it work for me. I walked to the sea-level medical bay, swiped my keycard, and hit the intercom. Medical, came a woman's voice. State your purpose. Jeffman Tanner. Headache. Won't go away. The lock buzzed and I stepped in. It looked normal enough. Fluorescent lights, cabinets, exam tables. A nurse sat behind a desk, flipping through something on a tablet. What's the problem? She asked. Headache, I said. Started this morning. It was getting worse. She pointed at an exam table. Have a seat. I'll get you something. Then she turned her back, and as she fumbled with vials and pill bottles, I scanned the room. There, a second door slightly ajar at the back of the bay. I saw the edge of a hospital bed inside. Restraints dangled from the frame. Hey, mind if I hit the bathroom first? I asked, voice calm. She gestured without looking. Through there. When she turned again, I moved. 3 steps, silent and fast, and I slipped through the half-open door. The space beyond wasn't medical. It was something else, something colder, sharper. Blinding white lights glared off machines I didn't recognize, all angles and tubing, monitors that pulsed with erratic data streams, alien in shape and sound. A low constant buzz filled the air like a swarm of hornets in a steel box. At the center of it all, a hospital bed. Mark, strapped down, eyes wide open, staring straight at the ceiling. Only he wasn't blinking. His pupils were blown out. They were black and bottomless, and his skin had this strange plastic sheen, and underneath it, thick black lines writhed like veins filled with oil. He didn't look alive. He didn't look dead. He just looked wrong. A woman in a white lab coat stood beside him, casually drawing blood from his limp arm, one hand scribbling notes on a tablet, totally absorbed, until her eyes met mine. Then they widened fast. This area is restricted, she said, stepping in front of me like a switchblade snapping open. You need to leave now." Behind me, the nurse appeared, her voice clipped. "Sir, the bathroom is the other door." "Oh, sorry, wrong door," I muttered, feigning confusion while stealing one more look at Mark. His chest didn't move. Not really, not like it should. There was no rhythm, just stillness dressed in wires. The nurse's grip tightened around my arm. "This way, please." Back in the front exam area, she shoved 2 white pills into my hand, along with a paper cup of water. "Take these now, and I'll give you more if the pain doesn't go away." I swallowed them dry. Behind her, the researcher hit something on her desk. A button, red and quiet. Probably an alarm. "You should return to your quarters and rest," the nurse said, already ushering me toward the exit. I didn't argue. In the hallway, I moved fast toward the residential block, my mind racing. Mark wasn't being healed. He was being dissected, studied, and whatever had happened to him, it wasn't just a near drowning. That night, when Dale finally walked into our room, I couldn't wait. "Look, we need to talk about Mark." He froze, eyes scanning the ceiling before answering. "I don't know what you mean." "I saw him today in the medical bay. He's still here, strapped down like some goddamn experiment." Dale moved to the sink and cranked the water on full blast, and then leaned in close. "Not here," he hissed. "They listen." "Who?" "Everyone." His eyes flicked upward. "Mark isn't the first. There were 3 others, just this past year." "Pulled into the water?" He nodded, barely. "Look, the company says accidents, emergencies, but it's always the same. They're taken and no one talks, or if they do, they don't stick around long." "And the others? What happened to them?" They never came back." He shut the water off hard. "Look, that's all I'm saying. We should go to dinner now." The mess hall felt off that night. Words hung in the air like they'd been pre-approved. Conversations came in stutters, long silences. The new security team sat alone, watching the room like wolves at a petting zoo. Oh, and nobody mentioned Mark, or the others. That night, lying in bed, I listened to the low, pulsing throb echoing from beneath the rig. It had grown louder now, heavier. It wasn't just noise, it was pressure. Dale was out cold, snoring softly. I stared at the ceiling, remembering Mark's black eyes, that still body, the needle sliding into his arm. When morning finally came, I sat up and reached for my boots. Something dropped out of the left one, a folded piece of paper, tight and precise. I shot a glance at Dale, still sleeping, and I unfolded the note. Cramped, clear handwriting. "Research level B3, midnight, come alone." I folded it back and slid it into my pocket. Who had left it? How the hell did they get in? Later that day, I manned the western platform, eyes glued to the underwater camera feeds. Around midday, movement flickered across one of the screens. Something shifted near the main support column. Fluid and deliberate. Not like the sea, not random. No, it moved with intent. I tracked it across 3 cameras. Whatever it was, it circled the column like it owned it. Too dark to make out. It was just a shape, but there were arms, or maybe tentacles. More than 2. Duncan walked past and paused, following my line of sight. "What's that?" I asked, pointing. His face didn't twitch. "Where?" "There," I said again. "That's not a fish, and that's not anything I've ever seen." Without a word, Duncan leaned over, tapped a few keys, and the screen changed, replaced with a calm, uneventful feed. System diagnostic," he said loudly, pulling out his radio. "Control, this is Ward. Running diagnostic sweep on western platform cameras 7 through 12. Temporary feed interruption." A crackle. "Copy that. Authorized." And then Duncan turned to me, stone-faced, and said, "Well, Sometimes the underwater feeds get interference. That's what they always said. Nothing to worry about, he muttered. That wasn't interference, I said. Something was moving down there. He didn't even blink. Just tricks of light in the water. Happens all the time. Then he turned and walked away, but not far, just enough to plant himself at a nearby console, close enough to keep an eye on me. I tried pulling the original camera feed back up. It was locked. My access had been restricted. They'd seen what I saw, and now they didn't want me seeing anything else. The rest of the shift, I moved like a ghost, eyes on dials and monitors, but mind somewhere else entirely. On the note in my pocket, research level B3, midnight, come alone. I'd never seen B3 on any facility map. That meant it was real and hidden, a place buried beneath the rig that required more clearance than I had and probably came with a death sentence if you were caught poking around. Security had been tighter lately. More eyes, more guns. That didn't matter. Something was happening here. Something bad. People weren't getting injured. They were disappearing, being taken, studied. I decided to go to B3. Whatever they were doing down there, whatever was reaching up from the deep, it was worth the risk to find out. On this rig, the truth could save your life, or it could end it. A boom snapped me out of sleep, 2:37 a.m. Then an alarm screamed, 6 seconds of high-pitched panic, and then cut off, leaving a silence that felt unnatural. Dale's bed was empty. I shoved my feet into my boots, half-laced, and stepped into the hallway. Emergency lights painted everything in blood-red shadows. No shouting, no movement, just silence. Where there could have been chaos, there was only dread. Well, the smell led me. Smoke, metal, something wet and rotting underneath. I turned the corner and froze. William. He was sat against the wall. One hand clamped over a wound at his neck. Blood oozed between his fingers, down his arm and pooling on the floor. His eyes found mine. "Montana," he choked. "Help me up." I dropped beside him. Gunshot. Neck just above the collar. Bad, real bad. "We need to get you to medical," I said, reaching instinctively for my radio. It was gone, still back in the room. His grip caught my arm, iron strong for a dying man. "No," he hissed. "They did this. Listen." I leaned in closer. His voice rasped through wet breath. "They're not drilling for oil." Every word was a struggle for him. "They're drilling into it. The boundary. It's coming through." Blood bubbled from his mouth now. "We're lab rats," he whispered. "Just part of the test." His eyes widened. His body jerked once and then again, like something inside him wanted out. He seized up, went rigid, then collapsed. His grip loosened. His body went limp. But his eyes never closed. Footsteps echoed, fast, tactical, and multiple sets of them. I scanned the corridor. No time for stairs. Too exposed. There. A door 10 feet away. Supply. I lunged, slipped inside, just as the team rounded the corner. Through the narrow crack in the door, I watched. Kurt and 2 guards flanked him, weapons out. They approached the body. One checked William's pulse and shook his head. Kurt spoke into his radio. "Subject W compromised. Containment breach possible. Prepare Unit 7. Subject W, not William. One of the guards took a photo. The other opened a silver case, pulled out a syringe. He knelt and jammed the needle into the wound in William's neck. "Full cleanup protocol," Kurt said coldly. "I want this corridor sterile by morning briefing." They hoisted the body up like it was trash. And just like that, William was gone. Erased. His arms hung limp, head tilted back like a broken doll as they dragged him off. Kurt trailed behind, muttering into his radio, too quiet for me to catch, but cold enough to chill my spine. I waited, crouched in that suffocating dark, until the last of their footsteps vanished into silence. Then I eased the door open. Oh, the hallway was dead again, except for the blood. A thick pool, still wet, like the corridor itself, was bleeding. It was all that was left of William. I pulled out my phone, hands trembling, and took a series of photos. Blood pattern, location, the stairwell sign in frame. Proof. If I was next, someone had to know this wasn't just paranoia. Back in my quarters, I sat on my bunk, phone in one hand, the other clutching the note still burning a hole in my pocket. Research level B3. William's last words played over and over in my head. They're not drilling for oil. They're drilling into it. What boundary? What breach? Why the hell did Kurt call him Subject W? Sleep never came. Dale still hadn't returned. I stared at the ceiling until the lights flicked on, signaling shift change. Morning arrived like nothing had happened. I showered, dressed, and stepped into the corridor. The blood, gone. Not cleaned, erased. Well, the floor gleamed, sterile, too perfect. Not even the faint chemical sting of bleach in the air, just the cold gleam of denial. The mess hall buzzed with idle chatter. Scrambled eggs, burnt toast. Laughter that didn't belong in a place where someone had just bled out in the hallway. I sat with Chris and Duncan and tried to act normal. Hey, you guys seen Dale? I asked, forcing casual. Chris shook his head. Not since yesterday's shift. Duncan didn't answer, just sipped his coffee like it was his last connection to reality. At 07:30, the daily briefing started. Kurt stood at the front of the room, flawless as always, tie straight, expression unreadable. He went through production stats and maintenance updates like everything was fine. No mention of alarms, no explosion, no corpse in the hallway. When he opened the floor, I raised my hand. The room tensed. You could feel it, like the pressure dropped a few degrees. Has anyone seen William today? I asked, locking eyes with Kurt. He wasn't at breakfast. Kurt didn't blink. There's no personnel by that name on this rig, he said, voice even, too even. Perhaps you were dreaming. Chris's shoulders twitched and Duncan stared hard at a loose thread on his sleeve. Oh, I saw him last night, I said louder, near the B-section stairwell. Kurt's eyes went flat. Mr. Montana, I'm concerned about your mental state. Isolation can play tricks on the mind. I suggest you report to medical for evaluation. Then he moved on, just like that. Like none of it mattered. I saw him scanning the room, taking mental notes of who looked uncomfortable. After the briefing, I made my way to the western platform. As I passed through the checkpoint, I saw them. 3 new guards. Not workers, not roughnecks. No. Military posture, eyes sharp. They stared at me a little too long, like they already had a file on me. The rest of the day, William's last words echoed behind every number I logged. They're drilling into it. Each tremor on the seismic readout, each pressure spike, each change in temperature. What were we really digging into? I didn't have answers, just the growing certainty that something monstrous was buried beneath us, and someone wanted it found. 1 week passed, no announcement, no funeral, no mention of William. He wasn't missing, he'd been completely erased. Part 4. The rotation schedule dropped Monday morning. My name had been moved, southern platform. I looked up from the tablet. Kurt was watching me from across the mess hall. No expression, just that stare. Southern platform? I asked Chris as he sat down with his tray. He didn't answer right away, just chewed his eggs like they were rubber, buying time. Newer equipment, different monitoring parameters. Where they hauled the new gear last week? He glanced at the security camera on the ceiling. Stick to protocol, you'll be fine. That was it. That was all anyone would give me. Even Duncan, who usually fed me scraps of real info, suddenly had critical errands the second I walked into the room. Dale hadn't been back to our quarters since William died. His bunk was untouched, his scraps still in place. But he was gone. Just gone. When my shift kicked off that evening, a security escort met me at the corridor, walked me in silence to the southern platform for orientation, Gert's orders. We passed through 3 checkpoints, each one tighter, more paranoid than the last. Your temporary access code, the guard said, and handed me a black keycard. Valid only during shift hours. Surrender it the moment you're relieved. The southern platform wasn't just another drill site. It was something else entirely. The chamber opened up, massive, cavernous, bigger than 2 basketball courts. In the center, a circular machine disappeared into the floor. Not the usual rig gear. This thing had translucent tubes coiling through its frame, glowing with blue liquid that pulsed in sync with that low sound I'd been hearing since I got here. The guard pointed to a raised monitoring station overlooking the floor. You track pressure, log issues. You don't leave that post, ever. Emergency manuals on the console. And then he left. Door closed with a hiss, heavy, sealed, and I was alone. The hum of the machine filled the space, steady and wet. The blue liquid throbbed like it had a heartbeat. 6 screens in front of me, each spitting out data. The center one showed depth, 13,487 meters now, way deeper than anything on the eastern platform. One screen showed subsurface layers, but something was off. The bottom levels had shapes no geology book had ever mentioned. Nothing happened for hours. I logged readings, stared at the slowly rising counter. No visitors, no calls, no chatter. Just that mechanical breathing from the machine and the cold hum of isolation. Then, at 2:17 a.m., something shifted. The lights dipped, dimmed, then came back. I checked the power logs. All normal, no faults, just a flicker. Nothing scary, yet. 10 minutes later, another glitch. The monitors crackled with static. The depth counter spiked, 15,034 meters for a split second, and then dropped back to 13,489, like something had punched through the rock. I reached for the radio, and then I saw it. By the door. Water was seeping in beneath the sealed entrance, thin, dark, and oily. It spread across the metal floor like it had a mind of its own. Didn't run toward the drain grates like it should have. No, it slithered, collecting, thickening into a slick, unnatural pool. That didn't make any sense. We were 40 feet above sea level here. That door was sealed tight, reinforced, layered. I stepped back. The puddle grew, swelling with a quiet intent. And then it rose. 4 feet high, a column of shimmering liquid climbing against gravity. The lights overhead flickered, and for a heartbeat everything dimmed. In that half-darkness the water twisted and morphed into a rough shape. Torso, arms, a head. When the lights came back, the liquid fell away, and something stood underneath. And it had William's face. Same jawline, same eyes, but the rest, not human, not anymore. Its limbs were long, spindly, and just wrong. Joints bent backward, the skin almost transparent, veins glowing that same eerie blue as the liquid in the machine's tubes. I stumbled, my back hitting the railing of the monitoring platform. It stared. Black eyes that were voids. No reflection, just endless dark. His mouth opened, rings of teeth, needles sharp, layered. But it didn't strike. Instead it raised a hand, webbed and warped, and reached toward me. Help! The word was a broken gurgle chewed by something that barely remembered how to speak. Vocal cords straining, misshapen. Thumbs. It knew my name. The creature with William's face knew who I was. William, I whispered. It jerked its head, a nod or something close at least. Not much time. Every syllable looked like pain. Letting in. My hand went for the emergency button on the console. The creature saw, and it lunged. Fast, too fast, fingers like bone needles stretching toward me. Listen, it croaked, fluid leaking from its jaw. Boundary breaking. They want. I slammed the button. Alarms wailed instantly, and the platform was bursting into red light. The creature recoiled, clutching the sides of its head, mouth split in a silent, agonized scream. The door burst open. 4 security personnel stormed in, armored, faceless, armed with weapons I'd never seen, barrels wide, humming with blue energy. Containment breach. Target acquired, one barked into a radio. And then they aimed. The thing turned to me one last time. That face. Still Williams, trapped in a body twisted by something far from human. Find others, it rasped. And then they fired. No bullets, just concentrated pulses of searing energy. Blue lightning. All 4 shots hit at once. The creature convulsed, blue veins strobing like dying neon. It hit the floor, twitching violently. 2 more personnel rushed in, dragged a clear containment pod behind them, like a coffin filled with pale blue fluid. They loaded the thing inside and sealed the lid. The creature twitched a few more times, and then floated, still. Kurt stepped into the chaos like it was nothing, calm and stone-faced. He surveyed the mess, said something low into his radio, and then walked to me. I hadn't moved, still pressed to the railing, shaking. That was William, I muttered. He knew me. He was trying to warn me, something about a boundary. Kurt didn't react, didn't even blink, just reached into his pocket and pulled out a small black case. He popped it open with a soft click. Inside was a syringe filled with a clear, gleaming liquid. Standard protocol, he said, voice like dry ice. Mandatory sedative after contamination exposure. That thing had William's face, I snapped, words spilling fast and raw. He knew me, he spoke to me. What the hell is this place? What are you really drilling for? I didn't flinch, just gave a quiet nod to someone behind me. Hands clamped down on my shoulders, iron strong and unshakable. I twisted, fought, but they held fast. This will help you process the trauma, Kurt said, stepping forward with the syringe like it was nothing personal. When you wake up, we'll talk about your future on this rig. The needle sank into my neck. Ice-cold fire shot through my veins. The world blurred. Just before everything went dark, I saw them wheeling the containment pod away. William's distorted face pressed against the transparent wall, his black hollow eyes still locked onto mine. I came to under the hum of fluorescent lights, blinding and harsh. The ceiling tiles above me were off-white, stained with old water like the place had been bleeding from above. Pain pulsed between my eyes, a slow, mean throb. My limbs felt like wet sand. A line ran from my arm to a bag of clear fluid dripping slowly beside the bed. Welcome back, Mr. Montana. Kurt sat next to me, a tablet in hand, face stone cold but eyes sharp, tracking every move I made. How long? I rasped. My throat felt scraped raw. 12 hours, give or take. He tapped something on the screen. You've been under observation since the incident on the southern platform. I tried to sit up, but my body didn't want to cooperate. William was there, I said, but Kurt cut in fast, smooth, rehearsed. William was not present. Our medical team attributes your episode to a stress-induced hallucination. Not uncommon. Isolation affects people in strange ways. Bullshit, I growled. It wasn't in my head. He knew me. He said something about boundary breaking. Kurt's eyes narrowed slightly then. First crack in the mask. He set the tablet aside and leaned in close. I see. A beat of silence. Then, in that case, there are things you need to understand. A doctor entered and checked my vitals. Silent, efficient. She even unhooked the IV and handed me a set of clean clothes. Then she vanished without a word. Kurt stood by the door as I got dressed. His back was turned, but his posture told me he was ready to snap into action at the first wrong move. Follow me, he said. We moved through a maze of corridors I'd never seen before, not part of the normal rig layout. Surveillance cameras watched every step. Guards posted at every junction, geared up with weapons that looked far beyond standard issue. Every door required Kurt's badge and a fingerprint. Each checkpoint buzzed and hissed open like we were walking deeper into a vault. We entered an elevator. Kurt swiped his keycard, then punched in a code. The panel lit up. Level B4. B4 is not on the facility map, I muttered. Kurt didn't say a goddamn thing. The door stood open to a corridor that didn't belong on an oil rig. It was clean and sterile, fluorescent white. Felt like stepping into the guts of something pretending to be human. He led me to a conference room. Long table, chairs lined up like soldiers. One wall, there was a screen, cycling through a polished corporate logo. Wait here. Then he left. I sat alone for almost 10 minutes, watching, listening. This room was too quiet. High-end tech everywhere. Touchscreen table, noise-dampening walls, cameras tucked into every corner. This wasn't some offshore shack. This was the control center. The door hissed open, and a woman walked in. Early 50s, dark, close-cropped hair, crisp business suit that didn't belong this far out at sea. She looked like she'd never been surprised by anything in her life. Her handshake was firm, cold, and over in a blink. Jeff Montana, she said, dropping into the chair across from me like she owned the place. I'm Dr. Catherine White, head of Project Rift. I understand you've had, an enlightening experience. Kurt stepped in behind her, silent, positioning himself by the door like a well-trained dog waiting for a command. Dr. White touched the table, and instantly the wall screen lit up with a digital cross-section of the rig and the black depths beneath it. Let me be clear, Mr. Montana, she said, her voice smooth and sterile. Oceanic deep-sea drilling isn't an oil company. Not really. What we're doing here... She zoomed in on the image, deep beneath the seabed. Goes far beyond pulling crude from the earth. The screen shifted again. Blurry sonar scans, unfamiliar waveforms, bursts of energy I couldn't even name. Over 18 years ago, she continued, our sonar picked up an anomaly, something impossible, something that shouldn't exist according to any known geological model. I kept my eyes on the data, my skin crawling. What we found was a weak point, a fracture in the boundary between our world and something else, another dimension. My voice came out hoarse. You're not drilling for oil. You're drilling into another world. And we're studying the threshold, she corrected coolly, collecting samples, monitoring surges, learning how that other place bleeds into ours, and what it does to people. Mark, William. I said their names like they might anchor me. Exposure incidents, she said, her expression hardening. The boundary leaks. Sometimes things reach through. Sometimes people who interact with the material begin to change. And biology starts adapting, mutating. She tapped again, and a video began to play. The containment room. Tanks, dozens of them, clear cylinders holding motionless bodies suspended in fluid. Some looked almost human, but most didn't. These are our subjects, White said flatly. Former staff. Changed. Studied to understand the transformation, to learn how to control it, maybe even reverse it. I saw Mark. His eyes were open, watching, still alive inside that thing. Then another tank. The face I'd seen pressed against containment glass. William. You didn't shoot him, I said, the truth hitting me like a body drop. Correct, she replied without a shred of emotion. William was an early-stage case. Escaped containment. We tried to recapture him non-lethally. He resisted and became aggressive. What you saw on the platform was the next stage. She talked like she was reading a lab report, not describing a human being. You're experimenting on them. My voice started to crack with anger. We're learning from them, she said. Mr. Montana, the implications of what we've discovered are limitless. Materials that defy physics, biological regeneration, weapon systems that could neutralize any threat. We're on the edge of something far bigger than oil. She leaned in, her eyes sharp enough to cut. Which brings me to why you're here. Kurt shifted then, just enough to remind me I wasn't leaving without permission. You have seen too much, White said, which leaves us two paths. Option 1, you join the research team, full clearance, hazard pay. Well, your engineering skills would be useful. And option 2? I asked, already feeling the trap close in. Memory erasure. Reassignment to a different offshore rig. No recollection of Project Rift. No trace of any of this. Her tone didn't change, but her eyes told me everything. They weren't giving me a choice. They were offering survival. Part 5. You've got potential, Jeff, she said, her voice low and edged with steel. I'd hate to see it go to waste. My mind tore through the options. Neither path was safe. If I refused, I doubted they'd just scrub my memory and send me on my way. More likely I'd end up floating in one of those tanks, half human, half something else. But if I jumped at the offer too fast, they'd smell the desperation. This is a lot to process, I said, keeping my tone even, measured. I need time to think. The doctor studied me with those ice-cold eyes, then gave a short nod. You'll have until tomorrow morning. In the meantime, your clearance has been bumped. Level B2 access. Look through some of our low-risk research files. It might help, clarify things. She stood, but paused. One more thing, Mr. Montana. If you try to contact the outside world about what you've seen here, we'll know. And it will be handled fast. For everyone's safety. Kurt walked me back to my quarters, silent and watchful. The room felt alien now. The bed, the desk, the window. They belonged to another life. One where oil rigs were just steel and sea, not gateways to other realities. Dale's bunk was untouched, still no sign of him. I lay in the dark, replaying everything. The rig, the missing crew, the monsters. The pieces clicked into place with sickening clarity. They cracked open a door into something we weren't meant to touch. Now it was leaking through. I had to get word out, something real. Documents, video, proof. 1:47 a.m., I slipped out. B2 might be my only shot. The corridors were mostly empty, night shift skeleton crews keeping things humming. I passed a few workers and nodded like nothing was wrong, just another engineer on another night. The comm center sat behind a reinforced door. My upgraded clearance worked. Inside, banks of humming equipment filled the room. Satellite relays, encrypted radios, uplink terminals. This was the nerve center. I sat at a terminal and began typing a priority message. Coast Guard, news outlets, anyone who might listen. But when I hit send, a message flashed across the screen. All outgoing transmissions routed through ODSD secure servers, awaiting clearance. Of course, no open channels, no mistakes. I bailed on the message and dove into the internal systems. My engineering credentials still got me in. I searched for research files, and to my surprise, a lot of them were unlocked. Video logs of first contact with the anomaly, medical scans of mutating personnel, drafts of reports on how to weaponize this dimensional corruption. I plugged in my phone and started pulling everything I could. The progress bar crawled like it knew time was against me, and then footsteps. A sound in the hallway. I yanked the phone out, shoved it into my pocket, and brought up an equipment log on the screen. Just another late-night engineer checking diagnostics. The door creaked open, and a security guard stepped in, eyes narrowing when he saw me. Mr. Montana. I looked up and forced a calm nod. Yeah, just familiarizing myself with the systems. The doctor bumped my clearance. He tapped on his tablet and checked something. After a moment, he gave a curt nod. Next time, notify the night supervisor. Clearance or not. First time down here, I said. Won't happen again. He gave me a long, skeptical look and then disappeared back into the corridor. I waited 5 minutes and then I left. Quiet, quick. No second chances. God, my phone felt like a brick in my pocket, loaded with enough evidence to burn this whole operation to the ground, if I made it off this rig alive. Every step back to my quarters felt like walking a tightrope over a pit full of knives. Shadows stretched longer, corners looked sharper, security could be anywhere. Didn't take my usual path, switched it up, less predictable that way. As I turned into the final corridor, I saw him, someone standing just outside my door, half swallowed by darkness. I slowed. I could have turned around, almost did, and then he stepped forward. Dale. He stared at me, blank expression, dead eyes. His gaze drifted to the bulge in my pocket. He saw the phone and then locked back onto my face. He didn't say a word, didn't have to. He knew. We stood there face to face, the hallway frozen in silence. His stare kept going from my pocket to my eyes. I couldn't read what was behind that blank mask, but the message was loud and clear. He knew what I'd done. We should talk inside, he said at last, voice like gravel barely moving through his throat. I didn't move. If Dale was part of security now, following him inside might be walking straight into a cage. But standing here with hot evidence in my pocket wasn't exactly genius either. I gave a slight nod and stepped in after him. Inside, Dale checked the corners, then turned the sink on full blast. The roar of water filled the room. They've got ears everywhere, he muttered, but not in the pipes. I stayed back, my shoulder brushing the wall. You gonna report me? He shook his head. Not yet. What did you find in the comm center? I studied him. This was the first time I'd seen him since William had died, but now here he was, asking about classified materials. It reeked of a setup, to be honest, but I needed info, and maybe a lifeline. Files, research logs, videos, medical records. They're not drilling for oil, Dale. They're poking holes into something that shouldn't belong here. Something alive. Yeah, I know, he said, dropping onto his bunk like the weight of the truth had finally crushed him. Been 3 months. I stared at him. How much do you really know? Enough. He dragged a hand down his face. The tanks, the things they're doing to these people, the changes. Look, it's not science anymore. It's something else. I thought of the supply runs, the one thing I might be able to use now. The chopper comes in 2 days, I said. Standard run, supplies from the mainland. Dale's head snapped up at this. Don't even think about it, he warned. Kurt's crew watch those runs like it's gold bullion. You try to sneak on board, you'll vanish before your foot hits the step. Look, I've got clearance, I said. Level B2, courtesy of the doctor. Well, the helipad requires B1, he replied flatly. You'd need a miracle. I paced, the walls pressing in closer with every step. I need more, I muttered. What I've got is not enough. I need to see it. I need to know how deep this rabbit hole goes. Dale leaned back, stared at the ceiling like he'd wished he'd never started talking. Just take their offer, he said. Join the team and do the research. It's the only way you'll survive. Like William survived? I leaned in, my voice a razor under the roar of the faucet. I'm not dying in this metal coffin, and I'm not letting them turn me into something else. He looked at me for a long time then, and finally gave a single nod. Get some sleep, he said. We'll talk more tomorrow. Again, sleep didn't come easy. I laid on my bunk, eyes wide open, mind slicing through plans, options, escape routes. I needed more evidence, hard proof, the kind you couldn't erase. I needed to get into the deeper levels, and somehow I had to get on that chopper. Sometime before dawn, exhaustion knocked me out cold. Morning hit like a sledgehammer. The daily briefing came fast, run by Kurt, who watched me like I had blood on my hands. No doctor. Her absence felt deliberate this time. Across the room, Dale kept his distance, never looked at me once, but I saw it in the way he stood, the way he moved. He hadn't forgotten, and neither had I. After the briefing, I made my move. Took the elevator down to B3, the research level. My clearance held. The doors hissed open, revealing a sterile white corridor humming with artificial light and paranoia. Most of the doors were locked tight, waiting for higher access than I had, but one, marked observation, clicked open with a dull beep. Inside the room was small, clinical. A wall-sized window stretched out before me, overlooking a cavernous lab below. Rows of towering containment tanks lined the space, each filled with an eerie blue luminescence. And inside, floaters. 24 of them, human, or at least what used to be. Some still had faces you could recognize if you squinted, just enough humanity left to make it worse. Pale skin, spiderweb veins just beneath the surface, fingers too long, eyes turning black as voids. Others were already gone. Twisted limbs, bones in the wrong places, skin stretched too tight or not enough. Just like William. A control panel at the window let me zoom in. I picked one tank in the back, and bile arose in my throat. Mark. Worse than the last time I saw him in the med bay. His body had stretched, joints warped like broken scaffolding, skin turned near transparent. But it was his eyes that froze me. They were awake, aware, and they were watching. Down in the lab, a technician approached his tank with some device. Marcus pressed against the glass, mouth moving in a silent plea. But the tech didn't flinch, just read numbers off a panel and walked away. I panned across the other tanks. Some held limp bodies, unmoving, maybe dead. Others thrashed slowly, like they were drowning in slow motion. One caught me, nearly unrecognizable, flesh warped and ruined. But its eyes locked onto me through the glass. It knew. Yes, it knew I was watching. I slipped out through a side door into an archive room. My clearance gave me just enough to rifle through cabinets marked with dust and secrets. Paper files, older than the digital records. I'd found the motherlode. Project Origin documents. They went back 30 years, long before the rig. A geological survey had found something, a tear in the fabric, dimensional instability. The first exposure changed 2 workers. Instead of sealing the breach, the company built this rig over it, designed to study the phenomenon. The files told the story in cold ink. Exposure created something new, transformative, powerful. No, they weren't drilling for oil. They were harvesting the unknown. Bioweapons, enhanced soldiers, materials that shouldn't exist. I photographed everything, every classified page, every forgotten report. Then I heard voices in the hallway. I jammed the files back into the cabinets and slipped through the back exit and emerged into the main corridor like I belonged there. The rest of the day I worked my assigned station on the western platform, hands moving but brain elsewhere. I couldn't stop seeing those tanks, those people, workers like me. One mistake, one breath too close, and you became a specimen. Back in my room, Dale was waiting. This time he turned on the shower, let the steam fill the space and mask our words. "You went to B3, he said. It wasn't a question. "How'd you know?" His look was tired and bitter. "Because it's my job to know. I've been assigned to monitor you since the day you got here." My hand went to my pocket. The phone was still there, the evidence warm against my skin. "Don't," Dale said. "I'm not here to stop you." "Then why?" He sat on the edge of his bunk, like the weight of everything had finally caught up. "My brother was stationed here 3 months ago. Tech specialist, like Duncan. Started asking questions, same ones you did." The air felt thick now. "He was, exposed," Dale continued, voice hollow. "They said it was an accident, containment breach during routine maintenance. By the time I pulled strings and got transferred here, he was already in one of the tanks." "Which one?" I asked, barely above a whisper. "Tank 17, far corner." His voice cracked on those words. "He still recognizes me when I visit. I think he does." Everything locked into place now. Dale's silence, his disappearances, the warning note, all of it had been pointing here. "That's why you left me the note," I said. "You wanted me to see it." He nodded. "I wanted someone, anyone, to know what we're dealing with down here." He looked up, and his face had changed. Grief, turned off, now replaced with something colder and harder. "If the chopper comes in tomorrow at 0800 for supply transfer, if we're getting you and that evidence off this rig, we'll need a distraction big enough to scramble security." "We?" "I can't leave," he said, voice flat. "They'd know I helped, but I can't make sure you get out." He pulled a tablet from under his bunk, screen flickering to life with the schematic of the rig. He pointed. "Primary power couplings here, level C1. If it blows hard enough, emergency protocols pull security from everywhere non-critical. That's your opening." I scanned the screen. "That's right next to the boundary, where they're drilling." "Yeah," he said. "Won't bust containment, but it'll light up every board on this rig, long enough for you to reach the helipad." He tapped another section. "They'll shove all non-essentials to the upper decks. You move with that herd, then cut off toward maintenance. There's a ladder system that gets you past the bottlenecks." "What about you?" Dale gave a dry, bitter smile then. "I'll be where I always am, fixing broken equipment. By the time they realize I broke it on purpose, you'll be halfway to the mainland." We spent the next hour going over every inch of the plan. Routes, alarms, timing. Dale knew the protocols like scripture, even how to trigger an alert without getting flagged by the system. I burned the layout into my memory. As we wrapped up, Dale locked eyes with me. "When you get out," he said, "make sure people hear the truth. Not just about the exposure and what it does, but about the ones they threw away. My brother, William, all of them." "I promise," I told him. "If there's a way to end this, I'll find it." That night we slept in turns, if you could call it sleep. I was too wired to close my eyes for long. Morning came, dressed in routine. Briefings, shift assignments, the low hum of machinery grinding in the walls. Nothing looked different. No one had a clue what we were about to set in motion. At 07:35, I was near the elevator to B3, pretending to run diagnostics. Dale was already gone, slipping towards C1 like a ghost in the pipes. 07:42, the lights blinked, once, twice, 3 times. Then all hell broke loose. Emergency in Section C1. All security personnel report to containment response stations. Non-essential personnel evacuate to upper levels immediately. This message looped as red strobes bathed the hall in pulsing crimson. I joined the flood of workers heading up, then broke off at a junction and slipped down a side corridor. My badge cleared the maintenance ladder. Like Dale said, the checkpoints were empty. The guards had vanished below, chasing a fire Dale had lit on purpose. By the time I hit the upper deck, the supply chopper was already spooling its rotors. Wind tore across the platform, whipping clothes and voices. I moved with the technicians, slipping into their ranks, one more body in the chaos. My upgraded badge passed muster with the distracted guard. He barely glanced at it. The pilot was climbing aboard, eager to get out. Engineering escort, I said, holding up my credentials. Repair batch for the mainland. He gave me a nod, waving me in. I climbed aboard. My hands shook, adrenaline screaming through every nerve. Through the glass, I saw the helipad below, saw the guards returning. And behind them, a figure stood at the edge of the platform. Limbs too long, joints bent wrong, skin pale and stretched. William, or what was left of him. He stared up at the chopper, face slack but eyes locked onto mine. Black. Empty. Knowing. The radio crackled. Fly helicopter Delta 3, this is Oceanic Deep Control. You are ordered to return immediately. Repeat, return to platform. The pilot looked back at me, suspicion blooming. What's in those crates? Standard parts, I said, heart thudding. Nothing flagged. Check the manifest. He looked at me a second longer, then returned to the radio. Control, Delta 3, returning as ordered. The bird wheeled around, nose tilting down. And I felt it. Something crawling under my skin, tingling. It started in my fingertips, spreading slow and cold. I looked down. Dark lines pulsed under the skin of my wrists, moving up my arms, my veins, or something worse. I knew the truth before I could deny it. I'd been exposed. Maybe it happened on B3, or maybe when I passed William. Didn't matter. I crossed a line you don't come back from. I was already changing. Well, the data on my phone, it might make it off the rig, but I wouldn't. We dropped back toward the deck. Guards waited, weapons drawn. Same kind they'd used on William. And at the edge of the helipad, William again, watching, unblinking. The helicopter touched down. The first cramp hit as I moved to stand. Fingers stretching, skin tightening. The change had begun. Well, my dear friends, it's been a long time since I've read one of those all in one go for you, and really it was a roller coaster ride. All the stuff I love, remote location, strange stuff going on, rifts to other dimensions, all that kind of thing. Really hope you enjoyed that one. So I've been through my personal stuff and come out the other end, and it's been pretty tough for a few weeks to sort of concentrate on doing this, to be honest with you. But I don't know, new lease of life, anything like that, something like that. I don't know what I'm talking about. Recorded all this in one day, and it's as always, my brain is gone. But I'm glad to be back doing these longer stories for you again after a while. So, thoughts, feelings, anything else you want to say in the comments below the video, and as ever, I'll do my best to join in the conversation. Feels good to be back, guys. Good to be back. Till the next time, hope you enjoyed that one, and you all sleep well, yeah?
Thank you so much for taking the time to listen to this story today. really means a lot to me and to the author of the story, of course. Well, if you want to know more about me, I'm pretty much everywhere on social media. You can find me on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram. You can download my music on SoundCloud. I've got a Patreon if you feel like. Throw me $1 or $2. Very much appreciated. And of course, on Reddit, I have a place where you can leave stories if you want me to read one that you've written. Well, hoping to see you all again very soon. Till then, sweet dreams. Bye-bye.